I'm going to introduce Mary Gentle, who's our author guest of honour this year. Mary, you wrote your first book at 19, 18?
18, yes.
18. It's kind of young to be a professional author.
Yeah, it wasn't actually the first book I wrote and sent to a publisher, because I wrote one and sent it when I was about 16, and it was short and kind of crappy, but they said, let's see the next thing that you write, and I thought, being young and innocent, I said, okay, I will. That was Dollhouse. So I sent them a book in silver in due course, and they said, rewrite this, and I rewrote it, and they took it. At the time, I didn't realise it was unusual.
You learn later. That did pretty well, Book and Silver. It's a young adult's book. It's called. What's a young adult's book then? What would you call? What's the difference between that and adult literature?
I suspect the actual definition is something to do with what you can get away writing in it, but mine is just, you know, have you got a bit of enough reading age to read this? Okay, you can read this. I don't know. When I was supposed to be reading young adult books, I've been reading adult books for years.
You've not been around much at 18, so how did you get your characters? Who did you base them on?
Entirely without prejudice, allegedly. I based these characters on people I knew and went to school with. Yeah, actually, pretty well everything that's in the Book in Silver isn't actually fantastic. Did actually happen and was pretty rotten. And some people's characters have been tinkered with a bit, which I guess is the reason for changing the names.
There was a long gap then between that and Golden Witch Breed. You know, one would have thought you would have carried straight on. So what happened there?
I did write another book between the two. That was the point at which my mother was ill and I gave up work for a year to nurse her. And after she died, I carried on working on a book that was originally called The Star of Africa. But I found that in the end, that would have been another young adult book. I think actually it just wasn't very good, but you don't know that at the time.
So then came Golden Witch Breed. Had you been mulling on that one for a long time, or did you just feel at the time you wrote something else?
I don't think since about the age of 12 there's been a point where I haven't been writing something at any given moment. So that was it then. I've had the end of Ancient Light, which is the second one in my mind since I was 17. So Golden Witch Breed and Ancient Light have nearly one far too enormous novel.
Very, very readable. Did you have to work hard to find that style of yours? Because it's very easy to read. It goes straight off the page and it goes into the brain. A lot of younger writers would be carried away with the words and the floweliness, getting the thesaurus out and whatever.
Oh, I got
Did you
carried away.
Did you find it hard to keep it simple, or did it just come naturally?
Well, that's just one of the advantages of writing in the first person. If you're going to do that, you can kind of try and make it as transparent as possible, so that you're just seeing through the person, and you don't have too much consciousness of what the person is like in their character. You have a general shape of it, but you see ideally what she's looking at, and you just know what she's smelling.
Is that why the character of Christy Jaleel is so sympathetic then, because you can imprint yourself onto her?
I don't know, you end up writing up to 20,000 words in the first person. There's going to be some part of the character that is you. And that's true of every character in the book. That's the one character. You can't write a character unless there's something of you in it. On the other hand, there's no point writing it unless it's itself as well.
You didn't find at any time that the characters took over?
Not in those books, no, because I kind of... That's a broad sweep of history book, that is. I know what's going on in that one. And these kind of people eventually find their way to the end of it. But I always knew what the major events in that book were going to be.
How did much sympathy did you have for the Orpheans? I mean, you set up a people who had been high-tech and had deliberately rejected that. Do you have any sympathy for that in yourself? Is it a message that you wanted to get through, or did you just use it to hang a good story on?
Well, there's two answers to that. One is that I'm ambiguous towards the Orpheans because I lived briefly the way they live. I lived sort of, the agricultural life, the cesspit down the bottom of the garden, the oil lamps instead of the electric lighting. And yeah, it's fine, but that's why we invented central heating. But the other side of that, of course, is that when I wrote that, I was, I guess, 21, 22, something like that. And that was the early 80s. And you kind of forget now with the Berlin Wall down and everything like that, quite what it was like living under the thought of a nuclear bomb at that stage. And I've been having a whole sequence of nightmares about nuclear destruction. And it was just something to do with the idea of Pandora's box, that once you've found technology, somebody somewhere will use it, which I guess accounts for the end of the book.
The other message that comes across, particularly in ancient life, is that you don't like members. You don't like the way politicians always get in on the action. There they are, they found these people. The system may not be perfect, but it works. And then people want to change it. Outsiders come in and they want to change it and they want to meddle, and the people that go there originally then go back with supposedly different itineraries.
They exploit it. John Cliff did a nice review of that actually, where he pointed out that it's the third world, the secret garden's third world, which I liked because that was quite what I was trying to get to in that one.
So that's quite a strong message that came out.
Yeah, I mean, possibly they did have messages in those books. If you're going to do a history of world novel, you can't help having messages.
So you don't mind this sort of like Ursula Le Guin. How do you feel about Ursula Le Guin's books?
Oh, I love her books actually. I think, having said that, I'm still in The Dispossessed. You can hear the sound of axes being ground. I like it, but that's a bit bad thing.
How much work did you actually have to put in to constructing the world? There's quite a complex political situation there. Did that come, or did you have to sit down and work on it?
Oh, I built that world. I built that world from the geology up, actually. That was fun. Because it is very easy. You can construct a farm, you can do all this, you can work out where the fertile areas are. And the political system comes from reading Machiavelli at a very early age and going, oh, yeah, let's see how this works. It came naturally.
You handle problems of interspecies emotions and feelings, I felt, very well, without getting tacky.
Yeah, it's like everything else. If I was going to do it now, I'd probably get tacky about it. But at that point, I thought, no, it's all going to be kind of understated and not taking the focus from the main sweep of it. But if I was doing it now, I'd make it a lot more overt.
Would you? Do you think that would be an improvement? It would be more fun to read. They're quite attractive people anyway, weren't they? The idea of the hair that's just
there was a lot to be done with that. I never quite did.
No.
So I made up for it in that somewhere.
Yeah, Rats and Gargoyles was a... I don't know if it was a departure, but it's certainly a lot different from ancient life. You have these two characters, Valentine and Balthazar. How do they come about? They can just spring fully formed into your mind.
One of them sprang.
Oh, really?
Valentine sprang. It was every so often this happened with each one before. I got off a train at West Croydon Station a sudden, bang, there she was. And I just looked at her, and I went home and I wrote the first scene of Beggars in Satin, where she gets off the train, and she's got a shoulder bag full of scrolls, and she's wearing a sword, and I thought, now what happens? And there was the next scene, and then there was the next. And that was nice. It was like building a bridge out over nothing. Having faith that at some point there's going to be another side. You put the end of the bridge to Balthazar Casaubon comes from getting seriously pissed off with Ben Jonson.
Why Ben Jonson?
I was doing a degree at that point, which involved me doing a thesis on Ben Jonson's comedies. Now, without going into too great a detail, you have to understand that Ben Jonson is physically very much as Casaubon was. He's large, he's a total snob. He knocks around with all these other Elizabethan writers, bitching about everybody. And he writes these totally scurrilous plays in the first half of his career. And then he swaps round and he starts writing all this neoclassical stuff with severe decorum. He becomes court poet to James III. And I got kind of annoyed by it.
Oh, right, you felt he'd sort of sold out, is it?
Sold out, absolutely. But then there was Balthazar putting pork chops in his pocket in the story, and I thought, oh God, I'm stuck with this guy.
So, you wrote the two stories, with Valentine and Balthazar. Then you put them into a novel. And what a novel. Humans and Rat Lords.
Yeah.
Where else did that come from?
Alchemy, the Three Musketeers. It was a friend of mine called Tina Angelatos gave me the best two-line summary of Rats and Gargoyles I ever heard, which was as follows. Woman goes to hot city to find out what gods are about. Hugh Dyke has fun with rat. You wonder why you got it.
You wrote Rats and Gargoyles. Supposedly got it out of your system. Then came Architecture of Desire, in which you take history and then stick magic in it. And you confuse the socks off everybody that thinks they know anything about that sort of period of history. You've got gender changes, you've got alchemy. The lovely scene on the Traitor's Gate, where not only have you got the heads on the poles, but they're muttering details of their crimes as you go by.
I got pissed off again.
Yeah.
there I was doing this degree on 17th century stuff. Well, to tell you the two books in order, about the same time as I should have been sitting down to revise for my finals exam on the degree, I sat down and wrote the first scene of Rats and Gargoyles, as it happened, right? And then that ran away for the next 8 months like a runaway truck. And I finished it and I thought, oh good, that's over. And the next day I had the first scene of The Architecture of Desire in my mind, which I guess comes out of the interest I had picked up in 17th century science and medicine. And once again reading Francis Drake's on Giordano Bruno and all the alchemical stuff and the spice systems and that. It's wonderful, and if you rip off non-fiction, they can't sue you.
Especially if they're dead.
Yes,
Yeah.
being dead helps.
Yeah, I can see that. It did have a lovely, well, I'm not sure if lovely is the right word. It had an authentic feel to it, Architecture of Desire. Unlike all these sort of wonderful fey romantic novels, I mean, you know, it's full of snot-ridden sleeves and pork chops in pockets, and people defecating everywhere. It's kind of earthy.
Thank you. Thank you for that kind of... Yeah, this kind of carries on a thing that was happening at the World Fantasy Conference in New Orleans, because I got co-opted into a movement retrospectively. Apparently I'm one of the hard fantasy people, which they now invented, or rather Michael Schwab has now invented. And he wrote about it in Asimov a couple of months ago. And hard fantasy apparently has kind of snot and disgusting things in it, and when you get cut open with a sword, you kind of spray all over the bloody thing. down gracefully and having a dying speech. It's all right. I, for the past 2 weeks, I've been surrounded by people saying chainmail at me. I do not like to tell you quite how deep this cuts.
So you wrote Rats and Gargoyles, and you got these characters out of your system, and then you did it again. You just done it again.
Yes.
And now we've got, what did you call it? Elizabethan cyberpunk.
That's right.
And at that point, I turned into a gibbering wreck, so I'm going to leave you to explain to these people what Elizabethan cyberpunk is.
It's perfectly simple. Yes. Hang on, we will come to me in a minute. No, actually, it is perfectly simple. It's set in a slightly alternate 1995, because I just wanted to tinker about with the political things and close London off. Valentine's still fighting, but she's teaching drama students to fight for the stage. And Casaubon has gone into computers and virtual reality. And shortly afterwards, there is a play that Christopher Marlowe never wrote.
Oh, not one that
Which turns
Shakespeare
out-
never wrote.
No, everybody's done the work that Shakespeare wrote. And anyway, Marlowe was far more fun. He didn't sell out.
Ah, so Marlowe remains a hero then. Ah. I'm almost afraid to ask what's next. Are they going to crop up again?
I don't think so. But then I didn't think so the last time.
I'm very worried about the character of Casaubon. He's a fat slob. He has the most appalling manners. He smells. He belches. He's incredibly attractive, isn't he?
I don't know how he does it. He's giveaway narrative tricky, and he's one of these characters I almost always write from the outside, where you see what he's doing and you hear what he's saying, and you don't know what he's thinking. So I mostly look at him through other people, and he manages to charm the socks off of them.
Oh, is that how it's done?
Yes.
Valentine changes her name between the three. She's just known as the White Crow
Pretty much.
in Rats and Gargoyles. In Architecture of Desire, she's Valentine Rosevear, the White Crow. And then suddenly she becomes Valentine Branwen.
Yeah, because that's Celtic for White Rose.
Ah.
I should tell you at this point possibly that one of my major influences was James Branch Capel, who has a habit of doing this sort of thing. You can read everything of his, and on the 20th time will go, oh God, that was a joke, wasn't it?
When I first read your books, I read Golden Witch Breed first, and then I read Ancient Life. And then I went on, because it went all around the club, I went on to read Grunts. It did seem a world apart. I mean, having read it in between now, what makes you say that?
It's deeply philosophical and tragic, exactly the same thing.
I think I missed that bit.
Somebody else who didn't read the subtext.
Is there a subtext?
Yeah, I'm sure I had it only a minute ago. I just put it down and told you.
All right. So Grunts. You're in.
People do that. They look at me and they go, grunts. And I go, I'm sorry. And then I blame him because it's all his fault. The worst joke in the book is his fault. He gave it to me.
Which was that?
That was the elf joke.
Ask me another answer.
Yeah, that was his fault. Actually, so
So who were you pissed off with when you wrote Grunts then?
oh, AD&D and live role players and soft fantasy writers. There was a point at one of the Renaissance fairs in America where I got offered a Tudor Viking mail shirt with Roman influence. I chose a Tudor Viking check mail shirt. And at this point I was left speechless, which doesn't happen that often. a lot of people doing science fiction live role. And it was going to be a deeply serious book. Excuse me?
No, I can see that because it's about world domination, it's about the morality of selling weapons to cultures that are unprepared for them. But most of all, it's about ripping people's heads off and screwing hobbits.
Yes.
And dead elves.
Yeah, yeah. Well, round about the time when I read Lord of the Rings for the second time, when I was 15, it occurred to me, because it does, that the orcs had not had their crack of the whip. So for a long time there was going to be this deeply serious and tragic book about these noble orcs. Anyway, about halfway down page 1 they turned out not to be noble at all. About halfway down page 16 I thought, what have I got here? Curiously enough, only 2 of the people who I have actually put into that book have come up to me and said, did you steal me to put in both cases I said yes. And if the others don't come up and ask me, I don't know.
I hope they would, well no, I was going to say nicer characters, but there aren't any nice characters really.
There are. I think the orcs are nice people.
Oh, the orcs are nice people. Yeah. Basically. That's an in-joke I'll explain later.
Yes. Very misunderstood.
And you don't like hobbits either, do you? Hobbits are really cute. But they're not very nice people, are they?
Right.
I mean, I was rather shocked being an AD&D player and used to playing cute hobbit. When Will and Ned go in to rob a house and do the most obnoxious things, which no self-respecting D&D hobbit would dream of doing.
Look, it isn't their species, so it isn't really cannibalism. Once upon a time, there was a DM who was unwise enough to run an AD&D campaign with me playing a hobbit. As I like to play a hobbit, so yeah, I must admit, Will has been played by me. Ned has been played, but I shall not tell you who played him. He didn't cross-dress quite so much in real life.
Not quite so much.
He did burn everything down.
Yeah, he did burn anything down he could reach.
I love the idea of orcs on Harley Davidsons. And in Huey, I understand where you got the name from now. How did you get the 2 together?
I can only conclude that he's playing fantasy live roleplay and playing science fiction live roleplay at the same time. Because there's a hop, step and a jump that goes fantasy LRP, science fiction live roleplay, SF playing Space Marines out of Aliens, Space Marines or Marines. I promise you it's a logical progression.
Oh. Yes!
Honest.
Yes, it is. Is there going to be a follow-up to Grunts? Are we going to see any of these other worlds? Are they going to be unleashed upon 20th century Earth?
If I ever get that many bad jokes together in one place, it's the main thing.
Is there anything you're working on at the moment?
Oh God, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm at the stage where it's kind of. I can best describe it as a not all screen. I'm looking around it going, the end of it's going to be somewhere. Where do I start? Eventually, this mass of stuff will give me a first line, and then it will fall down. Probably turn out to be nothing to do with it.
So is it going to be totally warped again, or is this going to be more deeper, meaningful mission?
Oh, I think philosophically, yes.
Yeah.
Probably about the first paragraph. I'm going to do a deeper meaningful bubble with you, but
Not just yet.
possibly not at the moment.
It's an interesting progression from Hawkins Silver to Grunts. Does this mean that you're getting more and more cynical as you get older, do you think?
No, I'm
Just
just
enjoying life?
It's cynical. Honest.
It's not.
It has a
squeakies. Hot.
Yeah.
And a nice seasoning.
Well, I've got this kind of reflex action where squeakies
Is there anybody that would like to ask anything? You throw it open now. We've covered, I think, just
covered all we're going into.
Norman.
But from a like professional standpoint, reading grunts, you seem to be well versed on modern weaponry, including the British weaponry. How did that come about?
Well, kind of two ways actually, because I started getting into medieval and Renaissance weaponry when I fell in, originally doing the research for a different book entirely, but one that ended up as Rats and Gargoyles with all the swords and that. And I'm not entirely sure how I got into the British weaponry thing, apart from hanging around with the wrong kind of people entirely. And then I ended up kind of being in the middle of doing a degree on that, so I guess I picked it up as I went along with it. I don't know why I ended up doing all these degrees.
Well, it makes great research for the books, though.
Oh, it does.
Without the
It's all
degrees, you
tax
wouldn't have the
deductible. I'm going to use it as research someday.
Any other questions? Alison?
When you're involved in books where there's a collaboration with a number of authors, all set in the same universe, how do you go about deciding the rules? Is it between you, or does one of you decide and everybody follow?
Oh, yeah, the nearest I've actually come to doing this was the Midnight Rose books. That is a company that me and 3 other writers set up to do shared world stuff. How can I explain this? Temps, which is one of the worlds, was devised on the back of an envelope. My friend Alex Stewart, who is a man of very dry wit, sat there and said, British superheroes, DSS, demob suits. And we sent this out to writers and 10 million stories came, all different, all severely ironic, which I suspect is why it didn't actually sell in the States. The shape-changing conspiracy shared world had a background Bible, I guess about 18 pages thick in single-spaced type. But that's because Ros Cayley devised it, so it could. And we got 1 million stories about that. And Villains was devised by me saying, let's do the bad guys' stories, and everybody going, yeah. And I got back stories even more perverted than I was.
You planning on doing any more of those?
Oh, I wish we could actually. It kind of fell foul of the recession and Penguin sliced them off at that point. If we never get anyone to pick up the licenses again, then yes. It was sad because we had stories for like kind of 2 or 3 more volumes in every series, which was wonderful. But they do tell me anthologies don't sell. This is depressing.
Well, if they put VAT on books, then they're going to sell even less, aren't they? Talking of books,
don't talk about VAT.
They said you're doing the Mary Gentle interview, and I thought, good, it's an excuse to read some more Mary Gentle. And then I went out and tried to find some.
Yes. Yeah, I had the misfortune to, well, it wasn't a misfortune, it was a fortune actually to change publishers recently. But unfortunately this means the previous publisher has put Rats, Architecture and Grunts out of print while they were still selling in truckloads. I don't understand this. My agent doesn't understand this. I'm not entirely convinced the publisher understands it. But this is what they've done. You can get them in American import, guys. Unfortunately, at the moment, that's about the only way you can get them.
Yeah, so how long is it going to be before they all get their acts together and it's all going to be back on the bookshelves?
With a bit of luck, I can get the licenses back and resell them to this publisher. Yeah. As soon as I can manage it, really. Fed up of people coming up to me, shaking me warmly by the throat and saying, where can I get your book?
Any more questions?
No, they've all gone to sleep. We tiptoed quietly away.
They'll never notice.
Sorry I came in late. Have you already done the idea for grunts yet? Have you already gave the idea for grunts?
Yeah, I suppose it was Dean Wayland, really. The green skin, the tusks.
Yes.
Yes, you are looking at the model for Ashnak. Just most of them.
Not.
Does this mean you're Magda?
Be careful, Cheryl.
Yes, but my whip broke.
Is that you?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's...
See how then it's on there.
Always end up saying I'm sorry.
It was probably the most interesting plot device I think I've read for a long time, to get one's sons and their mother to meet, being whipped in a brothel.
I think it was a little far-fetched.
No, not at all.
It worked.
I mean,
It didn't. I had twin sons myself, and I can say
There
quite
you are.
honestly that it could happen, I suppose.
In a dress? Well, we've seen him in a dress.
Last year we saw him in a dress.
Have to show Mary the photos.
No, I'm not going to show Mary the photo. She might base another book on it. And then can I sue her, do you think?
If you pay me, I'll bring the tape tomorrow. Or Cheryl, if you don't pay me, I'll bring the tape.
I still can't get over that scene, actually, where they are beaten, well, one of them is beaten by his mother in a brothel. Did that come to you in a flash of divine inspiration? Or were you peed off at somebody in particular?
No, it just struck me as a remarkably good and credible idea at the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
What were you drinking?
Wish I could remember.
What were you smoking?
Is that why you mixed up? Because it's a very mixed up book fronts. Is that why we had Harley Davidsons on one side and a Hobbit on a war mammoth on the other? And that dreadful joke about war mammoths won't trample on
Yes,
people.
yes, that was another high spot of the book.
It was.
It's this wonderful specious plot device. If you have these sort of gates between worlds and people who collect things, you can have anything you like, anywhere you like, or as Roger Rabbit said, only when it's funny.
We got any more questions? Mary.
You mentioned that you built the world of Orphe from geology up. What background actually do you have to in sort of science, geology, or whatever?
First year geology, basically. It was a component of my degree, and I thought, I might as well put this to some use. Construct it. I know where the rain's going to fall. I know where the mountains are going to be. Oh shit, this doesn't work right. Fetch it. And then sort of, fix it to put the bits of high technology in. I was quite proud of that, actually. Even the wings run where they should be. Nobody notices but what they know.
But you didn't have a map.
I did have a map.
Fantasy novel. Well, one map.
Yeah, I think I had two maps, actually.
So two maps?
Maybe the second one was in Ancient Light, actually, because it was the kind of
okay.
the one out of company record. But when I was writing it, I had a map, and it was kind of about a day's journey ahead of where I was currently writing. Building all the blank spots as it went.
Because you had a lovely map in Grunts.
Yes.
With every cliche I think we've ever seen in a
I
fantasy
don't
map.
think
The
I
Drowned
missed
West
any.
work. No.
Yes. If I did, somebody will tell me that I did.
You can apologise for it later.
It's not a cliche, it's a traditional narrative element.
So what you told your publisher, is it? Yes.
No, I told him it was a serious, tragic military romance. Being Colin Murray, he cried. He said, somewhat weakly, this isn't quite what we were expecting. I said, no, me neither.
So can we be assured then that whatever you write in the future, it's all going to be grittily realistic in a fantastic and slightly warped way?
No, I think I might do a soft fantasy of some kind. With a
Why do I-
Tudor-Viking male.
Why do I have a feeling this is not going to turn out quite as one expects it to?
No idea. Jasper was going to ask me a question. Can we finish before he does? trust that now.
Mary, the Road to Jerusalem short story, how much of that was based on science fiction role-playing?
Yeah, actually that appeared in His Own, so possibly you might have seen it. And it's tacked onto the end of Left to His Own Devices, because I've stuck a few stories on the end of that have been published elsewhere. That's one of the alternate Burgundy stories, of which there may be several more, and it's a military cock-up, basically. It's an atrocity. But all the training exercise stuff, yes, was stuff I did. You were probably on that one, actually. That was the South London warlords and several other people who run around in silly hats, firing laser pistols. And we did come round the back and flank them, and they didn't notice us, and we did charge into them. Actually, all this actually teaches you is that 9 times out of 10, if you go to battle, you're going to end up dead.
You mean it's not heroic?
Of course it's heroic afterwards in the bar.
Dying's hero.
Of course it is.
And it's the live ones that get to make them heroes.
Yeah, they were foolish enough. I don't know if anyone's heard of The Gathering, which is the big live role-play event with 2,000 people, yeah. Yeah, that they were foolish enough for one of the factions to leave me in charge of writing the history of the event. Oh dear me, we appear to seem to have won. Better next, you know.
Put that down to artistic license, though, can't
Artistic license expired, yes.
Yeah, winning and losing is merely a matter of where you're standing, though, isn't it?
Absolutely, of course.
It's like science fiction fans, isn't it? They all think we're weird, but they don't know what we think of them.
Aren't we weird?
I don't think we're weird.
Oh dear.
I think you're quite normal.
I am perfectly normal.
Mary,
You on, Cheryl?
Mary, you haven't met her sons.
That's true. Possibly I shouldn't.
Definitely not. Is there anyone else would like to ask Mary anything?
What was the basic idea behind the Rats and Gargoyles universe, particularly that which I found very odd, shall we say?
Do you mean the concept or the actual world of it?
Both.
Yeah. The world of Rats and Gargoyles, I devised an extremely difficult geometry because I wanted you to start reading the book and be aware that this was a concept you couldn't quite get your brain around. And hopefully, having got the fact that there's 5 points of the compass, you would realise that you were going to be kept slightly off balance through the rest of it, and therefore you quite happily swallow 6-foot dueling rats and similar strange diseases.
It's extreme I can understand.
It's just there to cheer you up every time you think you're going to understand the book. It's not like that at all. No, a lot of that is a big influence on me is Francis Yates, who wrote The Art of Memory, and Giordano Bruno and the Hermetic tradition, and all kinds of wonderful stuff about medieval alchemy, and quite how it comes to be modern science. And I just love that stuff. And, you know, she treats it desperately seriously because she's a wonderful historian, and I can't come along and make a pig's ear of it. It's more fun to play with.
Because you did the same in Architecture of Desire. You led us up this garden path. You led us to believe that we could really come to grips with this story because we understood the period of history. And then you made Oliver Cromwell a woman.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with history that a rewrite would be cured.
But it's very unsettling. I mean, do you sit there and think, right, these poor saps have had it good for a chapter and a half, let's throw another spanner in the works.
Let's pull the rug out from under, just in case they're getting complacent, just in case they're enjoying themselves. Gone. Yes, sometimes I do, and that book was one that I really, really wanted to. Somebody muttered something about me in America about being extremely dubious about the calculus of morality in the Architecture of Desire. And I don't talk to people like that usually. But they kind of got hold of what I meant, because I wanted you to finish that without any idea of who was actually moral, amoral or immoral. And you can read it several different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's all to do with keeping you off balance.
Yeah, and you never really discover what everybody's motives were either.
Nope.
Other than mostly guilt. Or
Mostly guilt, some
fear, or
ambition.
lust or ambition.
Yes.
All the nasty things.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but then drama tends to be made up of the nasty things, regrettably. Not a whole lot of mileage in them, they lived happily ever after.
No, not nice sort of books.
No,
No. No, not unless you want to put lots of makeup on and dress up in pink dresses and things. No, I was thinking of Barbara Cartland, actually.
well, it's an easy mistake.
Yeah. They'll explain my family history to you one day. It started out with Swedish erotica queen. We went on to sheep jokes, and now there was Royston in last year's costume. This year it's my turn again. Which is why I'm up here with you now. Is there anyone else?
What a controversial question.
How much difference do you find when you're in the States to over here? Do you find they've just got a totally different mindset with you?
Oh, I can give you that in one word, actually, irony. They had theirs taken out at birth. I went over with Marion down there and my friend Tina, and we were standing around in this coffee shop, being British and humorous, as you were. And I asked the poor little guy behind the counter how much it would cost to put ground glass in her coffee. And he kind of frowned. And he went white for a second, and then he realised this must be humour because he didn't understand. And after a while I learned to start speaking American, which is chiefly British with the jokes taken out.
Did you add just kidding on the end of it to make sure they understood? That's what you have to do.
To kind of leave them swimming, and they get so anxious, and it's such a shame.
Is Grant's out in America?
It's coming out in July. They chickened out of putting the cover that it's got in England on the American cover.
Yes, I can see
Marines
why.
raising
Yes,
the flag.
you have the Mothers of America after you for that. Little Mothers of the Revolution or whatever they are. Yeah.
Whoever they are, I don't think they'd like it a whole lot. No.
No.
So they chickened out of that. And I think they might try and market this as a serious, tragic military romance.
Probably good that they are going to use.
Yeah. Apparently it is basically a selection of Marines duffing each other up to a background of artillery, which sounds quite reasonable. I don't know, I'm about to get the copy-edited manuscript, to which my American editor said we've just kind of altered it here and there to get the cultural references right.
Ouch.
I can't wait. I just know there's 2/3 of it I won't have understood.
Oh.
Which may mean they leave the best bits in.
It's all about American Marines. Oh, that's why they won't
They don't
understand.
have a whole lot of sense of humour
About
actually.
American
Marines. No, they don't.
Especially
No.
Striker.
Oh, they were having a somewhat brick-knocking conversation at one point, so we looked at each other. And we asked them what RAF markings meant, and they went, what? And we went to British-speaking Iraqi, and they shut up. Oh, such fun American baiting. Shouldn't be, but it is. I didn't say that.
No, it'll be struck, won't it,
Yes.
from the video?
Just suddenly thought of
No,
a weird
it
down
shouldn't.
toilet. I didn't say that.
Now, this video doesn't get distributed very far.
Just
We're getting
as
the
it doesn't
international
get across
rights,
the
I
other
believe,
side,
next
yeah,
year,
that's
aren't we?
I can send it to Harry. Come and take a copy back to the States.
Yeah, we actually have
I'll change my name.
yeah, we have an American member of the club now, so you could be in deep doo-doo, actually.
No,
Well,
you're
there'll be nothing new there. Most people have this little cutout switch between the brain and the mouth.
Yeah.
Regrettably, they never fitted one on them.
I'm very pleased, actually, because it wouldn't have been half such a fun interview.
We had fun.
We had fun, I don't know. Do you care? I don't know. Is there anybody out there who would like to contribute some
Is
more
there
to this
anybody out there?
fun that we're having up here? No, I think Mary's
Yeah,
probably...
just one question.
You're getting the copy-edited version of Grunts, or the version for you to look at. Do you expect them to actually highlight the changes they've made, or are you going to have to spot them?
No, they will scribble on the manuscript. She said, we haven't scribbled too heavily. I know what this means. This means acres and acres of blue pencil. Acres and acres of little marks in the margin that say, you can't do this. And there's a kind of carrot at the end. She said, but we've left the British spelling. I thought, that was nice of you.
That's the bit all confusing.
Is it well? Go figure.
Cholera with a
Publishers,
U?
Go figure, yeah. Honour with a U. Honour and Marines. Some mistake surely.
So this means the completists have to get both the American and the British editions.
Do you think they're going to use a word processor that's got PC versions of what there isn't one part that pops up, you shouldn't say this? Do you think they'll use that in the books?
If they do, it'll blow a fuse.
You don't know what they're going to do about the special undead services.
No, I'm very fond of the special undead
So am I, but
services.
will they understand that?
I guess, I'm not sure. Oh, actually, one of the fun things I really enjoyed is I went to a little war games convention a while back, and a society had done the battle of the siege of the fort as a war game, and it was wonderful. And they let me play, and I used the radar-guided trebuchet, and I splatted Americ Firehand off the field, dead.
If I remember rightly, they let you play without realising who you were.
I let them explain my book to me for 15 minutes. They were really good.
Did it reveal anything you didn't know about it?
It just convinced me how bad the joke is.
Tell them about the posters and how them all without your name on it.
Oh yes, you tell them you were there.
But you tell them, you're nearest the mic.
I can't remember, what was it? Remind me.
It was the part where they had a poster up on the wall which basically said, Grunts, the book, basically, and it didn't have your name on it. It basically said, it didn't say apologies to the author. So the chap leaned over and said, oh, I must do this. And he wrote up, apologies to the author, at which point Mary turned round, handed over a card and said, apologies accepted.
That was John Crane, he's a great guy. Actually.
He's a damn good cop too.
He's got a good sense of humour, he needs it.
Right. Well, at this point, I think Mary's worked quite hard enough. I'd like to thank her for coming, for producing a great book. And long may you continue to write, and please may they continue to publish you.